Is a consultant, and today she's here to talk to you just about what she does, why she does it, some of the information that she's learned about businesses and culture, and then offer some suggestions for people who are interested in learning about how to create a good culture. So, she mentions at some point in her presentation, maybe she will or won't, but in the past she has that what she does is sort of where the rubber meets the road. And so it's practical application of what we learned in chapter 16. So let's give Melanie our undivided attention. In Canvas, you will see that there is an extra credit for today. Just like when Bill presented, basically you're just looking for one thing that resonated with you, either a piece of advice, some data that she shared, some tips, whatever it is, any information that was presented. So anything that resonated with you, capture that, put it in the Canvas discussion board, and you'll get your extra credit for it today, okay? But let's give Melanie a round of applause for being here. So.
Thank you. All right, so in September, I spoke at the Badass Business Summit. You guys heard of this? No. I heard the name, and I was like, I don't know what it is, but I should speak at it, because, I don't know, apparently they cuss as well. So I needed a walkout song to walk out to present to. Do you know how stressful that is? I'm not talking I was like a baseball game. Like I was going to present, and they're like, give us your walkout song. And I was thinking of all the cool things, right? Like, This Girl's on Fire, or I had some Aerosmith. I had some cool music. And every night I would go to sleep thinking of this, and the only freaking song that kept coming to my head, no one's ever walked out to before. Yankee Doodle. And I sung it to my son one night, and Yankee Doodle, fill in the blanks. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a stuck-up feather in his cap and called it. Okay, good. You guys are pretty good at that. All right, so then there was another part where he says, mind the music and the steppin' with the girls be handy. And I went, woo, I cannot sing that to my 8-year-old son. So I stopped, and I let it go. And then the next night at 2 a.m. again, I woke up and Yankee Doodle was like playing in my head. I'm like, what the? This is like the universe was talking to me. So I did some research, okay? You guys will enjoy this part. And I know no one's ever started a conversation by talking Yankee Doodle with you, have they? So I did some research. You guys know the history of this song at all? Okay, well now, look, it's a history lesson today as well. So Yankee Doodle song was sung in the Revolutionary War. The British sang it when they came over, and it was their rallying cry as they were hoping to defeat the American colonies, okay? And the song was actually, in Britain, they were dressing like this. You guys have seen this before, right? It's kind of a cool, okay? So they came over, and they're singing this song at us, and they're probably, kicking our butts at some point during the war. And we decide to take the song back, okay? So remember, Yankee was a derogatory term. Doodle Dandy had like homophobic slur type stuff with it, right? And we took the song back, and we started singing it, and we changed the verses, and we kind of empowered ourselves, and it became our rallying cry, all right? And the U.S. wins, and they go back to Britain, right? And all that good stuff, okay. So again, first person ever to historically walk out to the song Yankee Doodle Dandy. It was actually a really cool drum and fife, which you can look up if you really want. But what came out of it then was this idea, as I was thinking about the history of the song and how we can take back words, right? That we really can be the change we want to be in the world, right? We can take things how they are, we could stop and we could make them different. A macaroni, bet you didn't know this, that's what this was called. It was the Macaroni Club. It was a very elite club. You can do research on it if you want, but that was kind of they were making fun of us for not being as elite as them. How dare we stick a feather in our cap and think that we're a macaroni? Does that make a little more sense now? So there's all this stuff that's kind of going on in this song. I knew that as I listened that I could take this song and apply it to some business elements that I've been kind of toying with over time for myself as well, okay? So there are words that we use that we need to take back, or that we have taken back. So the LGBTQ community, they've taken back the word queer. If we use the word queer, that doesn't hurt them anymore. They've used that to describe themselves for quite some time now. The F word, I don't like good fat jokes, but if you put a PH in front of it, it's a cool word, right? Like how that's confusing. There's other words like that that exist in our world today as well. I would venture to say sales in the business world also gets a bad rap. Networking gets a bad rap. even human resources, which actually, as I'm looking at you guys here, so give me an idea of do I have anyone who's in HR? Willing to raise their hand? Okay, no. Do I have anyone who's where's my finance, accounting? What do we got? Okay. Who's in some form of marketing, entrepreneurial studies? What else? MIS or IT systems? Oh, okay. What did I forget? Okay. We've got a pretty good mix of people here. If I were to tell you that we had to think differently, right, to get past these things, this example of singing the song Yankee Doodle and taking it back was the first time where we used word reappropriation to neutralize a mockery and disarm someone of a weapon, okay? And it worked, right? It became our rallying cry, and we've seen it happen time and time again. What I want us to think about real quick is that the word thrive is also something that I want us to reappropriate. So if I said to you, what does it mean if a business is thriving? What are they doing? The definition is on the board, but I'll take any comments, any at all. There are prizes. Yes.
They're succeeding.
They're succeeding. They're succeeding. Usually people will say they're making a profit, they're meeting their goals. Thank you. All right, so thrive in and of itself, when you talk businesses, oftentimes they'll say we're meeting sales, we're doing those kinds of things. But what I'm kind of challenging us to think of thriving is actually a little bit different. The way we're going to thrive in today's world is actually by using our people to the fullest, okay? No matter what classes you're taking or what your major is, you may think it's the most important one, but I guarantee you it wouldn't be important if you didn't have the person doing the job, right? So as much as you may not, no one raised their hands to say they're HR, I'm very proud to be in HR. I'm a disruptor in HR because I think differently, and I don't use a lot of HR speak. Okay. This is just some of my information. I make sure that I tell you guys a little bit about the stuff that I'm doing, but my undergrad's from Miami of Ohio. I got my master's from UC. I grew up in Dayton. So anyone from Dayton? I'd like to know this. Yeah, I don't know why. Okay, I'm a Northmont Thunderbolt. Any of those here? Okay, well, anyways, good to see everyone from Dayton as well. I'm the president of People First, which is a talent and retention consulting. We do a lot of HR consulting, mostly around cultures and thriving. And then I think you know that you're a entrepreneur when you start other companies. So Influence Network Media is another organization that I have with a team of 5. And we help business leaders become authors, which has been a lot of fun in helping people become authors and influencers and thought leaders. Oh, hey, I did this last time too. There's some words, but I already said these, so we're not going to go there. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do kind of an overview of why culture matters, what it means to be intentional about doing it, how you can have a game plan. And this Chinese proverb is one of my favorites, and it kind of shows that model of what we mean by thriving. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, right? The second best time is now. So if you want to sit in the shade of the tree, you have to plant it in the past. And culture is the same way. Organizations need to be building on it. But we also, if companies haven't started, we would encourage them to do it now. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little story. This is fall of 2015, and this is at our Best Place to Work Award event. Have you guys heard of this event before? Companies wanting to become best places to work. Thank you. This was here in Cincinnati, and this team, we'd been working on taking the surveys, employee engagement, doing all these great things. We've been doing it for 4 years, and our scores were getting better. And in this fall of 15, we got invited to the pep rally. So we went. You can see we have our matching shirts and our pom-poms, and there were light up hair. There was all kinds of fun stuff. Again, it was a true pep rally. It was a lot of fun. And that morning, though, and you can't see it. I'm in the middle holding the trophy, if you can't tell. That morning, I got a text from my CEO, and he said, I'm not coming to the event today. Now, never mind that we had 15 people in this photo, 40 people attending, only a company of 90, but pretty much everyone in Cincinnati was invited. How do you think, now I'm smiling there because I'm happy we won, right? But I can tell you there was a lot of smoke and mirrors going on here. Do you think anyone was a little bit concerned as to why our CEO didn't show up that day? And I could have said this within 2 years of this photo. I know it's 7 years old now. But how many of these 15 people do you think are still there? Any guesses?
All of them?
You think they're still there? Nope. They are not still there. Because, and kind of where we're going with this is, people won't stay. They were proud we won Best Place to Work, but they were not happy that the head honcho didn't think it was a priority. So interestingly enough, there's actually only one person left. Even his executive admin is no longer at the company, which was surprising to me. The moral of that is people don't stay working for bosses that don't care. They don't want to work for bad leaders. They don't want to work for leaders that really don't care about them as a person or show up on the most important days. And these were some of my favorite coworkers. I still look at them and one of my favorite jobs of all time. So good news was we won that day. Bad news was he wasn't there. If you go on to think about culture, we're inundated with why culture matters. We hear about it from Deloitte. They put out a global trends report every year. The Wall Street Journal focusing on, the relationship between culture and performance. We've got the Harvard Business Review talking about the culture factor. One of my favorite books, Pay It Forward. And to me, this is a culture-related book, but it's that whole idea of how can we help someone else? Help someone else in a way. And if you guys, anybody read the book? Anybody seen the movie? All right, I would encourage you to do one or the other. Anyone ever have someone in line buy Starbucks? Would you ever buy Starbucks for the person in line behind you? That's like a pay it forward moment, right? Where you're trying to do something nice for someone else in the hopes that they do it as well. And in the book, Trevor, who's a really endearing character, I believe he's on the spectrum. They kind of paint a cool picture of him. His teacher wrote on the board, come up with an assignment that will change the world. What is something you could do that would change the world? And it was an extra credit assignment, and none of the students took it seriously. But Trevor did. And he came up with this play it forward movement, and the whole idea was to do something profound for 3 people, and they couldn't pay you back in money, but they had to pay it forward to 3 more people, right? And if that just kept going and exponentially over time, what a better place the world would be, okay? And where this is really impactful is that, I was laying in bed during COVID with my then 3rd grader who was struggling to read. You should be able to read pretty well in 3rd grade. And she, I'd gotten the report that she probably wasn't going to pass the 3rd grade. And lo and behold, it's not funny, but COVID hit and they got rid of all the student testing. So she passed the 3rd grade, which was awesome. So we worked on her reading, right? We laid in bed, we focused on reading this kind of a book. And eventually, so she's reading. And then my older child joined in. And my younger child, I am a mom to 3, a husband and 2 dogs, and a partridge in a pear tree. But we all were reading this book together, and it doesn't have pictures, right? It's just really endearing characters, really characters that cared about the world that they live in and how they could make it a better place. And I thought, how can we do this in the work world today? How can I apply this to culture? And I thought, well, the first thing I can do, and we're going to get to this model in a minute, but I can tell people about the Thrive model, and we give that model away. And the second thing I thought I could do is to write it down, right? Because there's lots of companies that aren't going to pay me to be their consultant, but they would pay $20 for a book, and they'd want to try and do it themselves. I'm like, awesome, I would love for you to do it yourself. It's a very altruistic approach in trying to get them to do it themselves, okay? So basically this lit a fire for me to go ahead and write my book, which I did. That and my husband probably making fun of me, saying I never was going to make it happen. So my book did launch in June of 21, which was pretty awesome. And the whole idea of that is, it's up to us to determine what our culture is going to look like. Conscious culture, it's a game plan to drive, a strong, I don't know what my subtitle is, a game plan to build a great workplace. Yeah, I had to read it right then. The idea is you just have to be intentional. You have to have a plan, okay? And yet in the business world today, we spend time in this bucket. Okay, you guys have heard of the Eisenhower matrix before. What's urgent and what is important and where do we spend our time? Most people probably spend their time here. It's urgent, it's important. It's on fire and I have to get it done. I would encourage you to think a little differently if you're going to be a proactive leader, because culture is not on fire. You might have some turnover issues, but typically there's going to be something else that's more pressing that you have to get to, okay? So as smart business leaders, we recognize that we got to spend time working on things that are vitally important, but not always on fire, okay? It's urgent. It's not urgent. It's very important. So we're going to make sure that we do that. So we start building our culture foundation. Just to kind of give you a brief, this is kind of like any other food pyramid. You start at the bottom, you build your way up. So we talk first about any environment you need to have safety and security, level up with respect. You cannot build anything we're talking about here for culture if you don't have respect. That's kind of a table stake. I talk to a lot of leaders all the time. They're like, well, this isn't happening. When it gets right down to it, if you don't have respect in your organization, none of this other stuff's gonna fly. Then you can layer in rewards and compensation and benefits, and you can make sure that your culture is thriving. So we're talking about this model a bit more as I give you some actionable steps on what we do to make this happen. Okay. Putting a little bit cart before horse here. If I was to say, who's responsible for culture, what would you say? Who is ultimately responsible for culture? Everyone, yeah. Answer was also on the board, guys. See, there's a theme here. People, right? Everyone. Thank you very much. That's television. Everyone in an organization, right? It can't just be the CEO's responsibility. It can't be HR's responsibility. It has to be everyone involved. And what's really kind of cool is we all fall in a bell curve, okay? So if you kind of take a look at most people sit in the middle. You've got your few top performers sitting on one end and your lowest performers on the other. That's true in any class. It's true on any team. You can apply a bell curve to just about anything. I want you to stop and think about someone who is like the best performer you've ever met, the best worker, the best classmate, and think about what they're actually doing that makes them that way, right? If I'm applying it to business or thinking about like customer service is one area we always talk about, they get stuff done. You give it to them, they check it off their list. They're on time, they go above and beyond, right? Whatever it is, think of some tangible things, okay? You have that person in your head. Because now what if I said, what if you could clone that person? Wouldn't it be cool if you could have an organization that was completely those people who you just said would be amazing, would be great for getting things done and running a great organization? That's what we're going to do as we define our culture. We're going to hopefully create people that we are able to clone. Now, this isn't a science project. This is a behavioral-based cloning, right? We can say, hey, here's the expectations of what we need you to do, and if we all do this, we can drive a great culture. These are the 6 reasons. So top reasons why companies make culture a priority. I'm not gonna read them to you, but I'm gonna ask, does anyone know or think one of these stands above the others? Or what do I hear most often? There's a couple answers, but chances are you'll guess one that's right. What do you got? Come on. Why are companies focusing on culture?
To drive overall business success.
To drive business success, for sure. For sure. What else? To find and keep A-level talent. Are you gonna say the same one? Yes. Okay. And I hear this too. I definitely hear the A-level talent. You hear about the war for talent. You hear about companies fighting for good people. That is absolutely a reason why companies are working on it. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. You'll also hear companies, they want to do it, the legacy, especially if it's a family-owned business. They want to make sure that that's preserved over time. You'll hear about that as well. But those are the top reasons. So we went on and we asked CEOs. We asked 250 CEOs, and that little icon in the corner, that's High Performing Culture, also called CultureWise. It's a company where I got certified in 2019 for culture. We asked them this question. We said, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is culture to the bottom line? Where are my numbers people in here? Okay, we're talking numbers here. This is important. All right. 1 being low, 5 being high. This is an important question. I didn't say fluff. I didn't say like culture feels good. I said, does culture drive your bottom line? What do you think we got? Show me some numbers. Come on. All right, good. Would you be surprised to see it this high? A 4.8? They're saying it's wildly important. Your people and culture drive the bottom line. This is not a soft issue. This is a financial issue, okay? If we're gonna drive the bottom line, we better have the right people rowing the boat the same direction. This is where the rubber meets the road, okay? And yet company strategy doesn't often support this. So we asked these same CEOs, we said, how many of you have a strategic plan? What do you think? A lot, 95%. How many had a sales plan? 97%, you're not shocked by that, right? They want to drive sales. How many had a financial plan? How many CEOs have a financial plan? All of them, you know that. So follow up with the next question. How many of you have a culture plan? What do you think?
60%.
I hear 60. What else do I hear?
40.
No one's ever guessed the right numbers. Does that make you feel any better? Come on.
56.
20, 56. There you go. Less than 10%. That is a whoa, holy shit moment. I heard some, drop the mic. So the problem is we just said it's a 4.8 out of 5, right? It's way important. And yet I have no plan. I have no plan to drive it. Are we smart business people? Should we be? So we see the problem, right? Hence why I created a business. Our entire business is helping this, I call it the elite 10%. There's only 10% that actually recognize that their people are their driving force. So again, to go back to, it doesn't matter what subject you're studying when you all raise your hand, right? If you hire the wrong person to be in the job, they don't succeed. The finance doesn't succeed, the IT, the marketing, whatever it is, the sales, you've got to have the right people, okay? So we're building out this elite 10%. The results of a soft culture. So I'll hear people say all the time, like, oh, culture feels good. It's just a nice, soft thing. I hope I work in a nice culture. What do you think they mean by that? I'll give you some answers, and you tell me what came to mind for you. Any of you stand out? These are all correct answers. So what do these stand out to you? As if I'm working in a great culture, I hope I have this. Does that stand out? Say again.
Work enjoyment.
Work enjoyment. You want to work somewhere you like? That's awesome. What else?
Good work-life balance.
Work-life balance. Team morale. Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to have good mental health? Okay. Do you want to have good conflict management? Let's go back. Attract top talents on there as well. We know that. Performance-based. You're more motivated. You're willing to take more risks. Quality goes up, right? You're okay with change. These are all really good things, right, to have in an organization. And yet we get hung up sometimes because we're like, well, that's the soft stuff. To which I would kind of dare you to tell me how you can easily change these things without having a great culture change, okay? So I know then you're saying, all right, well, show me the number, right? Show me numbers because, yeah, this is nice, but I'm a financial person or I'm a business person and I'm thinking about, is there a number? Is there a numerical impact for culture? So I'll tell you a little story about before we went to that Best Place to Work Awards, I was working, my COO, his name is Giuseppe Delena. And I'm Italian, and he was this hot-blooded Italian, which is part of why I love him. I write about him in my book. And he would go around the office. I remember I worked for a design, marketing, engineering research firm, okay? And so a lot of creatives, but he would go around the office singing an opera, really loud, and not everyone appreciated it. I thought it was kind of cute and endearing, and I was in HR, so I'd get all the complaints, and I'd be like, he's not yelling at you, he's singing really loud opera. And he was really good at it. But you knew when Giuseppe was around because you heard him, okay? So I walked into his office one Monday morning, and we were, that week on Thursday, we were going to go to the Free Store Food Bank. Do you guys know what that is? Okay. If you don't know, they make power packs for hungry kids, right? So you donate all the food, they put together these power packs, and they help kids that might not have meals on weekends, okay? Pretty cool business. We decided to be a hip and cool company, right? This is before we won Best Place to Work. We wanted to give everybody time off for community service, which I think is pretty cool. So that Thursday was approaching, and we were giving everybody a half day off, and we're in a billable environment, right? If you don't work, if we don't bill the clients, we don't make money. And so that Monday, Giuseppe called me into his office, and we had a new hire in there, which that was just embarrassing, really, to have this conversation in front of a new hire. But he said, Melanie, we cannot go to the Free Store Food Bank on Thursday. He's like, we're not going to make our quarterly numbers. He's like, we have to stop. We got to pull back the horses. We got to tell everybody we are not doing this. And I said, Giuseppe, we can't do that. If we pull back now, everyone's already planning for it. They're excited. We've got our, again, matching t-shirts. I think it was the first time we wore our matching t-shirts. And I said, but it's the intrinsic value. It's team building. It's all that soft stuff, right? I said, they're excited about this. I was like, plus, this is billable hours. They're going to get it all done beforehand. We'll be gone for the afternoon. They're going to work it in. They're very responsible. And he kept hounding me. We're not going. Show me the number. It was like a Jerry Maguire moment. You guys watch Jerry Maguire, right? Okay. show me the number. I'm saying over and over, show me the number that if we do this, we're going to meet our quarterly numbers. And I was like, I can't show you a number. I can just tell you it's the right thing to do. And there's all these other reasons and soft stuff I can tell you about, but intrinsically it just feels good. It's the right thing to do, and it's good for our team. Later, I don't think that new hire made it very long, by the way, because I don't think you don't know if you liked our conversation. But we go to the event Thursday. We have a great time. We take pictures for marketing and PR. We do all this great stuff, but we enjoy it, right? And we make 2,500 power packs for hungry kids. That's a good impact number, right? 2,500 kids are going to have meals because we did this. And on the way home, my phone's ringing, and it's Giuseppe. I don't know if he's going to sing or yell or something, right? And I pick it up, and he's quiet. Which is, I don't know, it's not a good sign. And he just said, "You're right. You were right." And I was like, "Can you say that louder for me, please?" He said, "You were right." He said, "Man, that felt good." And the team all came together, and it was just the coolest thing. And he just kind of kept going. And I said, "Show me the number." Right? I said to him, "Show me the number. Show me that we just did that, and now we're going to meet our core numbers." And he's like, "You're right. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I see where you're going with this. I see how it felt, and I see that we can make some good things happen." Fast forward, right? We go on to win Best Place to Work. Like, we had to put the things in motion to make that happen. But the number thing still hangs out there for people. So we followed up with the survey, and we asked, right? So we knew that less than 10% were making their plan. But we went ahead and asked, for those CEOs that were intentionally focusing on culture, what kind of results did they see to profits and revenues and things like that? Do you think they saw improvement? We talked about Thrive at the beginning. Does this look like improvement? Are you surprised to see this? So it's 200 companies that intentionally managed cultures versus those that did not. Check out those number increases. Revenue, stock price, and net income. Would you like to see that in your organization? Right? And that's because you're focusing on people and culture and making sure that 4.8, right, where you drive the bottom line, you're making sure that really matters. So there are hard numbers tied to it. It's just hard to sometimes see that metric. When I get this question from CEOs, I often go back to resort to the Giuseppe story, or I'll talk about we can look at turnover numbers, we can look at employee engagement scores, we can look at net promoter scores. There's all kinds we can look at it. But there's also just this inherent kind of that if you build it, they will come. Like, we got to create the culture we want to see, get everyone rowing the right direction, and you'll see the lift from that. So to kind of bring it all together, we know that we can create a great culture when we can have an impact when we're intentional and we're driving competitive advantage. That's kind of the three-legged stool that we're standing on here, being intentional around our culture. These are the kinds of things that we are recommending to organizations. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of them here. So the first thing, I'm not going to go into that. Nope. What we then hear from organizations is, "Well, I'm too busy. Please don't put this on my list of to-dos because I have too much going on." Okay? The answer is, and who's responsible, right? We already kind of said people are responsible for culture. Does it sit on any one person's shoulders? No. It has to be something that might be led from the top down, but these are the kinds of things that we have going on in work, meetings and more meetings, right? Planning, strategy, sales, whatever it is we have going on. Nobody wants to have the pressure of having a great culture on their plate. It's just something that has to be handled by everyone, and we're going to show you how to do that today. Some of that is because we're utilizing the power of habit. So if I were to say to you in here, in a habit or a ritual, we use the term ritual, it's a practice that becomes ingrained as an automatic behavior over time, okay? So how many of you brushed your teeth this morning? Finally, participation, my overachievers. Did you have to stop and check off a list, like a to-do list? Why not? Because you just knew, right? You do it every morning. Hopefully, your mom, dad, whoever, ingrained in you that when you wake up in the morning, you always brush your teeth. Well, you don't have morning breath. So it's a habit that's been created over time. The same thing happens at baseball games. What happens before the game? There's about 3 to 4 minutes where we sing the national anthem. If somebody was up there in the control box saying, "Man, I hope we can find 3 minutes," that's not how it works, right? They know they're going to play the national anthem. It's going to happen every time. Same thing with the 7th inning stretch, right? What do we sing in the 7th inning stretch? You guys need to go to more baseball games. Take me out to the ball game, right? It happens every game. This is a ritual. It's a habit. We don't have to think about it. It's going to happen. It's the same kinds of things we have to work into our organizations, okay? The other thing is you can't be listening for, HR speak. No one likes HR speak. This is the kind of stuff you're listening for. No one's going to say, we need a compensation analysis. They're going to say, I don't get paid enough to do this shit, right? They're going to say, my buddy makes more money than I do. They're going to say, man, my boss is a blank. I chose jerk because that's a nicer, right? That means we might need some leadership development. We need some coaching. We need some mentoring, whatever it is. Or maybe you hear things about all the good people are leaving, or man, why is that person going, or where are they going? Okay, that's a culture issue too, right? Turnover. What do we need to do to address it? Maybe people feel underworked and underappreciated. Again, to kind of go back to that, in today's market, what you're hearing is, I don't know why I can't work remote. You guys are hearing people that are getting forced back in the workplace, or forced back into brick and mortar, right? Because that's the way it's always been done. We hear that a lot. And that's one of the top reasons why people are potentially leaving jobs. So they didn't step back and say, I think we need a culture plan. Instead, they just said, hey, we're not flexible, right? There are things that need to be addressed with that company, probably culture, but definitely policy, handbook, those kinds of things, because we're having some knee-jerk reactions to get people in the office. So I'm just saying there are some keywords or buzzwords which we want to listen for, because it's not always going to smack you in the face of what we're listening for to make those culture changes. Okay. So this is our strategy to build into. We wanted to have some tangible tools that we're going to use to drive the strong culture. Okay. So I'm going to tell you about Cards for Culture, which is a game that I created to help build it. And then the Thrive model is the actionable item. It's actually the paper in front of you, so I'll show you that here in a moment. But we want to define our mission and values and determine behaviors. That's going to happen in the game. And then when we get into now how do I do it? That's the Thrive model, okay? And how do we embed it into our habits or people practices? All right. So the game. I should have brought a copy. It looks like a box like, I'm sure none of you have ever played Cards Against Humanity, right? Okay. Playing that game, or let's just say Apples to Apples. I was playing Apples to Apples with my husband and friends during, I'm sure we were socially distanced, during COVID. And having a beverage, and we decided that I was sitting there, and my husband said, wouldn't it be cool if you could do something like this with culture? I was like, that would be really cool. We could make it sticky. We could sit down with leadership teams, and we could play a game to help them determine what they want their culture to look like. And so that idea kind of started things churning. And so we actually have a beta test out. We've played it with about 25 companies, and it's going really well. Actually, no one took me up on my offer last time. Anyone know anyone who's done a Kickstarter? Not participated in one, but led one. See me afterwards if you have, because it's like the elusive, I would say like the Loch Ness Monster. No, people know what Kickstarter is, but no one knows anyone who's really done one. We're talking about doing a Kickstarter for the game, because it's an innovative game-like thing. The Kickstarter community loves that kind of stuff. But the idea is we can't just put this game out on shelves, because it's a business tool where you have to be able to facilitate tough conversations, time manage really well, and then kind of guide them to the things that you want them to see related to their culture, okay? So the first deck of cards, much like Apples to Apples or that other game, is that you're determining what we call your keys to success. So when you walk into a company and you guys have interviewed places, right? They may already have words on the conference room wall, right? They're pretty words. Let me see, I think I have some examples here. They're typically these ideas or values. Those, by the way, those are the top ones that are on everyone's wall. Integrity, innovation, service. That you can kind of start citing them over and over, because every company thinks that this is what they do well. We have an initial deck that is about 50-ish cards. I want to say 52 just because I think that's a nice deck of cards number, right? So we have a deck of cards, and we sit down with the leadership teams and we sort through you can't focus on 52 things, but you could focus on your top however many. Let's give you the top handful of things that you want to make sure that you're doing. And so those kinds of things come up. Are there anything else that comes to mind for you? Any other areas that you're like, hey, I'd really want us to focus on this? Some people will say results, problem solving, maybe being passionate. How about having fun? Does anyone have fun? right? There's a lot of things you could say, or a lot of different words that you could say, could be your core values or your keys to success in your organization. It doesn't have to be these top, how many is that? 6, 5, okay? But the reason why we can't just stop there is that we weren't all brought up the same. We didn't grow up some of you might have grown up in Dayton, right? But no one raised their hand that they're a Northmont Thunderbolt. And you definitely didn't grow up in my house with my parents who were teachers, okay? We grew up differently. We did different things. We would define these words differently. If I asked you to define integrity right now, could you do it? It's a loaded question, right? If I challenged your integrity, does that feel personal? Integrity is like one of those hot topic words, right? And I will guarantee you we would all define it very differently. We had a client situation. We were playing the game, and Bob was at the table, and the CEO, it was only 6 of us. The CEO started kind of attacking Bob, and he called it an integrity issue. So you can imagine sitting at this table was very uncomfortable. But he kept saying how disrespectful Bob is. You know, he said, you're late to every meeting, you never show up on time, and you're so disrespectful to our team because of this. And I kind of called a timeout. You know, we had to rein back in the rules of the game here. I said, but isn't it possible Bob's just really shitty with time? Like, I think Bob has a time management issue. I don't think that Bob has, like, don't question Bob's integrity, right? Like, that's kind of a loaded weapon. So we kind of talked through it, and we made that change. But I'll tell you that even though we started then addressing it differently, Bob still wasn't a culture fit. Bob was the person that they would always say, oh yeah, we stand for this. Great teamwork, except for Bob, right? Or we demand great quality or service or whatever it was, but then there's the exception. The moment you start hearing the exception in workplaces, we have a problem, okay? We need to get everyone on the same page. So what we're driving to is the behavior. So before, when I had you picture, right, the best person you'd ever worked with, right, that gets stuff done person, that pushes things over the line, whatever it is that made them the best person who you wanted to clone. The reason is because you were thinking of behaviors, and we can coach to behaviors. We can coach to actions, okay? So instead of just talking about Bob and his integrity issue, if I said, hey, Bob, I want to talk about how, you know, we're a fanatic about, in this case it says response time, or showing up on time, or we're timely and organized. I noticed that you haven't been that way lately. It's not a surprise to Bob if we've already defined it and we've told everybody this is our culture. We're just holding him to the expectation, okay? So it gives us that common language to have the discussion. The keys to success are the values, that's the first 50. The second deck of cards gets a little more complex, and that's the behavior-based cards, okay? So we're literally pulling out cards, and you're tossing in your card of this is a behavior that I believe is really important at our organization. And we have this discussion in about a 2-hour time frame, and our clients are saying they get more done in 2 hours. One said, I get more done in 2 hours than I have in 10 years. It's very results focused. It helps them really hone in on what are our keys to success and how do we drive that with behavior. And the next piece then is we got to bring it to life, right? If you define it and you do nothing with it, or you put it on your conference room walls and you do nothing with it, then we have a problem. Okay. So we define it, we create these pretty pages, we put in the behaviors, that's what's in the definitions here, okay? And we didn't just make this up. I mean, this is something that's been happening with bigger organizations. When I got certified with high performing culture, I learned about how the Ritz-Carlton does this. So the Ritzes across the world, so from Bali to Barcelona to Boston, at every Ritz-Carlton, at the beginning of every shift, they have this daily lineup meeting, and they talk about one of their basics. They call them the 20 basics. We call them keys of success. And they talk about it. So let's say the one for that day is customer service. And they bring their staff together and they talk about how someone really showed, exemplary, they give examples, right? They celebrate people. They talk about the positives. And they make it part of their habits. They make it part of their daily common language. And they motivate people around those basics. So this is kind of a cool way to see it. Those meetings are not mandatory, but I will tell you that from everything we've heard, their team wants to be there, right? It's a celebration of their culture. They also celebrate, birthdays and anniversaries and other stories of success. So it's become a really kind of rallying point for companies, including that of like the Ritz-Carlton. So we're bringing it to life. That's that third deck of cards that shows up in the game, okay? We talk about it in ways like, how do we make it show up, okay? We've defined the culture, great. Now what? Well, we want it to be part of the common language. We want it to show up in meetings. A really practical example would be if I'm interviewing you, I should ask you that question, right? So if I say we stand for great customer service, and I define it as we go above and beyond, we deliver on a timely basis, we give the customer what they need, not just what they ask for, right? I set up very specific things. And then I ask you, at an interview, tell me about a time you delivered legendary customer service. What did you do? Behavior-based interviewing question. That's what HR people are going to use on you. You know that, right? And you would respond back, or you might say something like, well, let me tell you about the time that I, whatever, delivered on a timely basis, and I went above and beyond. And they're going to be listening for things that help them understand that you're a culture fit because they've defined it. And yet, sadly, what happens in most of corporate America is that they are winging it. They're trusting their gut. They're saying things like, I'm just really good with people. I just trust my gut. I can read people really well. That's not really the best approach, right? Hope is not a strategy. We should actually define what we mean and then say, okay, here's what a real culture fit looks like. And we can drive to getting everybody on the boat and going the right direction. Okay. So the next thing, you'll flip over the paper that you have there. This is part of our 5. Oh, 10. Okay, thank you. This is part of our creating the plan, okay? What I use this for with clients is called the Thrive model. And this helps us really bring it to life, okay? So this is like 70 things that a company can do to build out a great culture. We give this away for free, and we ask them to use it as, use it as a guide. We're trying to increase that elite 10% to now have a plan. So we're going to give this away. They want to read the book if they can't do it. What I would encourage you to look at, so Thrive is an acronym, THRIVE. We tell people to start in the roots, so start at the bottom. Circle the areas that you need help with, right? Check off the areas where you feel that you already have some success. You can work on it yourself. And if you need help, again, you could read or you could call in our team to come and help you. We do all kinds of things around this. Just to kind of give you an example, so T is for talent. That's typically things related to hiring, applications, those kind of things. Health of the business is your compliance related things. Retention is around comp and benefits and engagement, more around events and engagement committees. Improvement, that's kind of a catch-all bucket, but there's definitely things around process improvement in this bucket. Vision matters, and that's your culture and communication bucket. And then engagement at the top. So this is your leadership bucket, okay? So those are very important as well. And you can use as much or as little as you want. The idea would be you start with the roots and then you level up. So if I'm down here and I'm working in the talent bucket, and I'm like, yep, we're good. We have a basic onboarding checklist. I don't think I need anything else. Okay. The idea is, okay, that's great, but you can do better. Let's improve the onboarding process. Let's make it something stellar, something engageable, okay? These are the kinds of things that I hear over and over that organizations have, and they think that they're driving great culture. Ping pong tables and happy hours get a really bad rap. So you're going to hear that as you're out interviewing. If you go play at the ping pong table and they roll your eyes or their eyes every time you pick up a paddle, is that a good feeling? So you can't have the scarlet letter every time you want to play ping pong. Okay, it's got to be something they actually embrace. And we started asking our team at the company that I was at, like, well, is that what you want? Because we had fun things like ping pong and we played hallway golf. And they're like, no, we actually want to go blacksmithing. Or we actually want to go on walking architectural tours of Cincinnati. Because they were designers, they were creatives. And so when we started adding those things in, it didn't cost us a lot of money, but it really changed the dynamic of the team. They were excited to do these things. They didn't just want some of the basic happy hours, right? We listened to what they needed. We worked on their engagement. Kind of a modern day spin on water cooler talk. If your parents talk about water coolers, this was one of our very simple ideas around having a water bar. So Water Bar Wednesday, someone came up with it. So every Wednesday we would ask people to bring in a different flavor, like we would infuse water, different fruits and vegetables. Jalapeno strawberry was not our favorite, but it kind of became like a modern day water cooler talk. What a simple thing, right? Hydration and wellness, and it was silly but simple. These are the top 3 benchmark areas. But every time we do employee engagement surveys, this is the result. This is what we hear. Leadership needs work. I don't trust senior leaders. My benefits aren't good enough. And I need better communication. So aside from pay, these are the top 3 things that come up all the time. And the top 3 things that we're typically addressing when we're coaching and we're driving a great culture. So how can we keep, and when I say benefits, I don't just mean medical. I also mean things like workplace flexibility and other work perks. Okay. kind of skip through here. I talk about developing strong partnerships and the kinds of things we're doing out in the community. I mean, I would drive culture all day long. That's my favorite thing to do. We oftentimes get brought in to recruit. They need help with recruiting. That's a huge thing going on right now. And I just tell them, like, well, yeah, we'll come and do that, but we're not taking off our culture lenses. Like, if we see a problem, we're going to make sure we address it. We're only going to bring in good people. I'm only going to tie my name to organizations that I feel really good about. We're also certifying HR leaders. So we're basically saying, hey, I'm only one person. I live in Cincinnati. And while we're starting to get clients across the country, we're creating a certification for any small business leader or HR person to become a culture coach, which is pretty exciting and a cool way to grow what we're doing. This is the secondary business, and the only reason I bring this up is there's some element of, as I'm talking to leaders about their organization, they oftentimes talk about like finding their own voice, their own form of leadership, and how they want to have, they want to be thought leaders, or they want to influence more or speak. I hear that a lot from leaders. So the other business I started was Influence Network Media, and we help business leaders become authors. It doesn't apply a whole lot other than it fulfills a bucket list item for a lot of leaders. And I usually have that worked in. I'm not going to get into that too much. So this is what we've talked about, how we've defined our mission and culture. We've done it with Cards for Culture. We've defined our behaviors, and then we've gotten into how we drive it to action through the Thrive model. And I'd love to hear what questions you might have, if you have any. Any questions at all about, any of the things that I talked about, like why this works, why it doesn't work? Yeah.
When you're talking about finding culture fits, how do you feel about, or your personal opinion about how some of the bigger companies use like personality tests to see if there's a culture fit?
Yeah.
Seeing that type of stuff.
Almost all of them will do something like that, and there's so many, right? DISC, Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders. I just did one the other day, CVI, I think it was called. Most of them are just using it as a piece to the puzzle, so like I don't mind it, and you're probably, it's gonna be hard to get away from it as long as it's just a piece, right? Because they really still should be looking for how does that fit into the greater picture. There are some that are a little more heart-based than others to determine if someone's a good fit. So what I find the biggest flaw in that is that a lot of times they'll do that test and then you'll never see it again. Whereas the best companies are saying, hey, this is my type, and here's how I can do better, and here's how I can apply it to my team if I'm using it. So catch-22, not used correctly oftentimes in the interview process, but it can be really powerful if you continue to use it beyond that. So wrapping this real quick, we started with this. No one's ever started talking about Yankee Doodle before, and if I asked you, I said, could you all sing, and you all you kind of filled in the blanks for Yankee Doodle, right? I didn't ask if you could sing well, I just said, could you do it, right? The answer is yes, we could. We could sing. We're now aware of this. We know what word reappropriation is, right? We take something we take a word and we redefine it. We take a word like thrive, where we thought it only meant that our company was going to succeed financially, and we recognize that there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for it to flourish, okay? All right. That was kind of our end result there. I appreciate you guys coming today. Any other questions, anything else that I can answer? I'm going to hang out for a few minutes. Amber, anything?
No, I just want to say that
There's one over here. Sorry.
What?
There's one more question. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you have one?
Yeah, sorry, it's
That's
not
all right.
that serious, but what song did you end up walking out to?
I actually did walk out to a drum and fife song of Yankee Doodle,
Okay.
which was hilarious. And being in Texas, I really was a Yankee, and so we kind of laughed about that too. Which was kind of fun. So, yeah, I got a good laugh. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, no, that's okay. I'm about to post an evaluation for Melanie. So again, it's less than 60 seconds probably to take the evaluation. If you could do that when you have a chance, that way I can send her over some data just about her presentation, the content, her delivery. But she is a business person, and I know she comes in and presents all of this great information that